Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I have two adorable cards to share with you, and I'm going to show you how you can take plain die cuts and add a whole lot of shine, and the best part is there's no dry time. And I'm going to be using the brand new Sweetest Pie bundle from Concord and 9th. This was just released today, and this has so many dies that you can create your own pies with. And the stamp set includes this adorable gingham pattern as well as several fun and punny sentiments to go along with these pies. And let me tell you, I have never baked a pie in my life, not from scratch anyway. And this makes me feel like I could make the cutest pies, but with paper instead. So I'm starting out by stamping this gingham pattern onto some Concord and 9th white cardstock using mushroom ink. And then I am going to move my stamp and stamp it again using Concord and 9th Sorbet ink. Now, I absolutely love the coordinating die for this particular pattern, and that's because there are two dies and you can choose how you die cut this. The first die is the die that I'm using here, and it cuts out around this gingham pattern, but it creates a little fringe edge around it, which I think is so much fun. And when you take your fingers and kind of run it along there, you can really add some dimension. The other die is a plain square die, and you can cut right up to the edge of that gingham pattern, so you could create a layered look as well. Now I'm going to take some of the dies from that die set, and I'm going to die cut them from various shades of Concord and 9th cardstock. I'm starting with the pie servers and the larger of the plain circles in these dies. Now there's two sets of plain circles. There is a larger set and a smaller set. The larger of those circles in those sets creates the pie tin or the pie plate, and the smaller one creates the fruit or pie filling for the pies. So there are two pie size options in this set. Now I'm going to die cut all of the crust options from some white cardstock, or you could use an ivory cardstock, which I actually ended up going back and die cutting these from some ivory cardstock because I didn't like the color of ink blending that I did to begin with. So I die cut all of the pie crust options from some ivory cardstock, and then I blended over the top of all these pie crust options using Concord and 9th Nutmeg ink. Now you can see there are several pie crust options, and I love this. Have you ever seen, like on Pinterest or in the beautiful like Martha Stewart magazines is what I think of back in the day, all of the pie crust decorations that they create with the little shapes? There are some of those shapes in this die set, and they are so fun to play around with. There are two hearts, there's a leaf, and then there's a couple of whipped cream options as well. So in order to build the pie, you're just going to take your pie filling circle and you're going to lay it on top of the larger circle that creates your pie tin. And then you can layer any of the crust options on top of it. Now, these come together super quickly, but it's so much fun to experiment with different pie crust options and different colors underneath, which we're going to do in the second card. But for this first card, I really just wanted to create a pumpkin pie because it is one of my favorites. Now, there's so many pie options out there, and I cannot wait to see how you guys combine your colored cardstocks to create custom pie options, whether it's raspberry or apple or cherry or blueberry, or maybe you just want to make a whole rainbow of pies that aren't even realistic, and I think that's fun too. Now, I haven't shown it here, but this die set also includes a couple of peekaboo dies, so you can create peekaboos in your pie crust in the more solid part of that. So that's a fun option for this as well. But for this first card, I am creating that little pumpkin pie as I mentioned before. Now, I have my little tablecloth there, but I also wanted to create a textured background. So I am using the new basket weave card front die from Concord and 9th. That's new this month as well. And I used it to die cut the Nectar cardstock. Now, the cool thing about this basket weave card front die is that there's no outer edge. So you can use it at an angle on your card front. You can use it on an actual card front or just a card panel. However you want to use it, it's a great way to add some texture to your card. And it also coordinates fabulously with this Sweetest Pie bundle. So you can see I've taken my little tablecloth there and added it at an angle in that lower right hand corner of my basket weave card front. And now I'm taking this pumpkin pie and I'm adding a little sorbet ink around the edge. Now, if you don't add the shine to it, this is a great way to add some depth and dimension to that colored piece that's going to go in the center of your pie. In the end, once I added the shine, you really couldn't see the shading that I added using that ink. So it's up to you if you want to do that step or not. Now, in order to add some shine to this, I am going to add some tape runner adhesive on the back of my circle and attach it to a makeshift cardstock handle. That's just going to help me hold this piece of cardstock as I add my shine to it. Then I'm going to coat the entire die cut with some Versamark ink. This is my embossing ink. And then add a layer of clear embossing powder over the entire thing. Now I'm doing this with a plain circle die cut, but you could absolutely add shine like this to any of your sentiment dies or your shaped dies. It's a fun way to add a little bit of unexpected shine to your die cuts, and you don't have to wait for like some glossy accents to dry. Now, if you want the shine super thick and dimensional, you could go in after this cools and add another layer of Versamark ink and another layer of clear embossing powder. So that would add a lot of dimension and a lot of shine to this die cut, but I just stuck to the single layer of clear embossing powder today. Now I'm adding some liquid glue on the back of that pumpkin pie piece and attaching it to that matte silver cardstock that I die cut using the larger circle that's acting as my pie tin. And then I stacked up 2 layers of this kind of fluted crust die to add a little dimension to it. I'm just attaching them together using some liquid glue. And then I'm going to add some liquid glue on the back of those stacked up die cuts and add it to the outer edge of my pie, creating this adorable pumpkin pie, because pumpkin pies, when you look at them, have a little bit of shine to them. Now, because this is a really slick surface from all of that embossing powder, I am going to add a couple of clear acrylic blocks over the top of that as it dries. And once that's dry, I am going to add a couple of these decorative crust pieces to the center of my pumpkin pie. So I just have the 2 small hearts that I've ink blended with that nutmeg ink, and I'm adding them on with a little bit of liquid glue to the center of my pie. These are completely optional, and I think the leaf would be a fun option for this pie as well. So I wanted to create a sub-sentiment to go along with this card project. So I have some Concord and 9th Stardust ink in my Misty stamping tool, and I'm inking it up using some Versamark ink and stamping it onto the top portion of that Stardust cardstock. Then I'll remove it from my Misty stamping tool and add some white embossing powder, and I'm going to heat set that and then trim it down. By the way, I am using the Rose Quartz Misty, and that's an exclusive available at scrapbook.com. And I will have that as well as all of the products that I'm using in today's projects linked in the YouTube description below, so be sure to check that out. Now I'm just using my little mini guillotine trimmer to trim down that sentiment strip. And now I've die cut the word hello. This die is from the Sweet as Pie die bundle from Concord and 9th. So this is included in this die bundle. And I've added a little bit of liquid glue on the back side of that, and I'm attaching it to the top portion of the sentiment strip that I created. Now, in order to attach my pie to the card front, I'm using a little bit of foam adhesive because I like dimension on my card. And then I am going to attach my sentiment strip using some foam adhesive to the card front as well. I did add another one of those pie crust hearts to the sentiment strip just to kind of bring it all together, and I adhered that onto my card front and then trimmed off the excess. Now the only thing left to do on this card is to add my little pie server, and really I should have added it before I added my sentiment strip because I kind of wanted it to tuck underneath the sentiment strip. But I couldn't do it, and in order to get the right positioning, I just went ahead and trimmed the pie server into a couple of different pieces and then added some liquid glue on the back of that and kind of gave the illusion that it was adhered underneath the sentiment strip. So you can see I glued the upper part using some liquid glue, and now I'm taking the lower part of the handle and I'm just adhering it to the card base using some more liquid glue. Now, to add a little shine to the pie crust to make it look like sugar, I thought it would be fun to add some liquid glue and some glitter. So I have some completely clear glitter. This is like the rock candy glitter from Tim Holtz. I didn't want any iridescence to it because I just wanted it to look like sugar. So I added the glue all over the crust pieces, kind of at the edges, and then I sprinkled on the glitter. And at this point, I was like, I probably just ruined my card. I really thought, oh man, I made a big mistake. But when I tapped it all off, I thought it was actually really perfect. Now I added that entire card panel onto an A2 size white card base with a little bit of foam adhesive, and that finishes up my first card featuring this adorable Sweet as Pie stamp and die bundle from Concord and 9th. Now let's make a card using the smaller pies. I've die cut the pie tins from the matte silver cardstock from Concord and 9th. And then I've die cut 3 colors of pie filling using the smallest circle die in the set. I'm just adhering all of these onto a strip of cardstock using a little bit of tape runner adhesive so I can add the shine to these as well. So I'm taking this and I'm adding my Versamark ink all over the top of these die cuts. And as I mentioned before, you can do this with any shaped die cut. It's just a fun way to add some shine. But when I think of fruit pies or pies in general, they all seem to have a little bit of shine. It's probably from all the sugar in them. So once I have all of the die cuts coated with some clear embossing ink, I'm going to add some clear embossing powder. And that little cardstock strip is just acting as a handle so that I don't have my fingers in the ink and in the embossing powder that I'm putting all over the surface of these die cuts. Then I went ahead and melted all of that clear embossing powder, and now I have some shiny fruit portions for my pie fillings. Now I am using 3 of these small pies on this card that I'm creating. I think the large pie is great on its own, and I think it's fun to combine several of the smaller pies onto a card to create a little scene. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm using the lattice pie crust for 2 of these pies. So I'm using it for this kind of cherry pie and then also for this blueberry pie. And once again, I've added these onto the pie filling using some liquid glue. And then I've just placed an acrylic block over the top of those while that glue sets up. Because it is such a slick and shiny surface, I want to make sure that adheres well. So for the orange pie, which I've die cut from some Sorbet cardstock from Concord and 9th, I used that fluted pie crust around the edge, and then I'm adding this little piece of whipped cream here right in the center. So this is my pumpkin pie, and I added that using some foam adhesive. Now I dressed up the blueberry pie using the little leaf pie crust piece, and I just placed it on that right-hand side. And for the cherry pie, I went ahead and grabbed some cranberry enamel dots from Concord and 9th, and I placed a few of those in the center so it looks like that cherry pie filling. And I think this is a fun way to kind of dress up these pies in different ways. I did want to mention I also added some shimmer pin to the surface of that whipped cream die cut that I placed in the center of my little pumpkin pie there, and so it has a little bit of shine as well. I die cut the words cutie and pie from the Sweet as Pie die set, and I'm going to use those along with this I love you more than pie sentiment, which I stamped on some Tidepool cardstock. And then I die cut the tablecloth die from some Nectar cardstock, and I used it here without the gingham pattern. And I think this is a fun way to use this die on its own without that gingham pattern. And I'm just running my fingers along the side of that fringe to give it a little bit of dimension so that when I place it on the card, you will really see the fringe along the side of this die. Now, once I had that kind of fluffed up, I added some tape runner adhesive along the back side of that little tablecloth there and added it to a panel of white cardstock. And then I'm just going to use my scissors to trim off the excess. By the way, these scissors were a part of my recent 5 crafty things I'm loving right now video. Still loving them. And if you haven't caught that video, I'll put a card in the upper right-hand corner. Now I did stack up a couple layers of these cutie pie sentiment die cuts here, and I'm adding them onto my card front using a little bit of liquid glue and a pair of cross-lock tweezers to kind of hold them and keep my hands out of the way as I place them where I want them. And then I adhered my pies onto my card front. The cherry and the blueberry pie are adhered flat onto the card front, and then the little pumpkin pie is going to be added with some foam adhesive. I trimmed down my sentiment strip there and added it kind of tucked underneath that little whipped cream piece on the pumpkin pie. And you can see I'm just starting to adhere all of these pieces together. And once I have everything in place, I'm going to go ahead and finish this card off with the smaller of the pie servers, and I'm just placing it right over the top of that pumpkin pie. Once again, I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue. And I did want to mention these pie servers, there are two sizes in the die set, so one to go with the larger pie, one to go with the smaller pie. And I die cut the handle of them from some wood cardstock from the Essentials by Ellen line, and I'll have that linked below. Now for the card base, I am using this gingham pattern and stamping it in some mushroom ink. Now, I had stamped this pattern earlier and die cut it in the beginning of this video, and I didn't end up using that, but I thought it would be fun to layer this gingham underneath the card panel that I have. So I'm just placing it kind of at an angle in that lower right-hand corner, stamping it down using some mushroom ink. And then I'll pop my card panel up over the top of that using some foam adhesive, and it's just kind of giving that layered look. So once I get that in place, my card is complete, featuring 3 of these little mini pies from the Sweetest Pie die and coordinating stamp set from Concord and 9th. I love the shine on the filling of these pies, and I think it's such a fun way to kind of bring a little life to your card projects. Now, I think this Sweetest Pie bundle is perfect for use year-round. We're coming up on pie season, and I think it's great for the holidays, but I also could see using this for baby showers or birthdays or just little I love you cards as well. Now, as I mentioned before, I will have all the featured products used in these projects linked in the YouTube description below, so if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me today. It means so much to me that you're here. I hope you enjoyed these projects, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And don't forget to leave me a comment below and let me know which of these 2 card projects is your favorite. Keep your eye out here. I will be sharing more inspiration featuring the October 2023 release from Concord and 9th, so I hope to see you back. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. You know, if you've made it this far, you are one of my favorites. To subscribe to my channel, go ahead and click the button on the left side of the screen. And here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.